Welcome to 89. Steve Smith Sr., James Palmer with you, our second ever guest. And I think this is a big one, Steve. Greg Olsen joins the show, your former teammate, God bless him, I think for 3 seasons. A 14-year NFL career, look at you go already. 3-time Pro Bowler, and in my humble opinion, I will say, the best color commentator on the NFL beat right now. Greg, you have been outstanding. I just want to say this before we get started, Steve, and you can throw your 2 cents in. I've been covering the league for 15 years now. I still, Greg, learn a bunch of things every time you call a game. And I just love that about the way you call a game. So thank you for joining the show. Steve, take it away.
You know, obviously my teammate, a guy that still lives here in Charlotte, but I text and I kind of antagonize Greg a little bit when he's on air, like he has nothing else to do but look at his phone. And I listen to Greg. I think Greg's awesome. I also listen to Greg for many hours and many minutes and seconds in the locker room. People think I talk a lot. Hey, guy, Greg Olsen was born to be one of the best broadcasters out there. Really, I respect the heck out of Greg, what he does. As a wide receiver who has had to line up outside of him, we haven't always seen eye to eye because he wants exactly what I want, which is the football. So it's been interesting, but Greg's been a great dude, man. Love you. Appreciate you coming on, man. And, you know, I've said this to you privately in text, and I've said it publicly. And I think you're one of the best broadcasters out there. And I love listening to you, bro. You do a great job.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you both saying that. And I'm happy to be on, Steve. We had a lot of good years.
Yeah, we did.
Wish we won a few more games, but it was fun, man. I enjoyed playing next to you. I'll never forget my first reaction, and this is the truth. When I found out I was getting traded from Chicago to Carolina, you know, I had played with Moose early in my career in Chicago, and obviously Moose, you know, former teammate of yours, another Charlotte guy,
big bro,
great career. When I came to Carolina, it was the first time playing with a top tier receiver, like in the midst of his prime. Like I got Moose, he was awesome. He had just signed. You'll probably know better than me, Steve. He had just signed with Chicago, maybe the year or 2 before I got there.
You did.
Anyway, he was
he
there.
Got a big contract.
But I was like, dude, I'm going to go there, play along Steve, have a guy that gets all the attention and really be able to operate there on the inside. Like that was my first reaction to going to play with Steve. And I never saw more cover 2, never saw more guys playing cloud corners. Like, and it makes life a lot easier when there's so much attention on the perimeter. And as a young player, I remember like experiencing that and being like, oh, wow, like now I get it.
Yeah. Greg, before we get into this, what's it like on the sideline when you're stealing balls from Steve?
It's super. You know, the thing for all of you guys who know Steve, the nice thing about Steve is it's always very like approachable. It's always very calm. It's always very like, hey, Greg, do you have a second to have a conversation? So that's always what's so easy about having those discussions on the sideline. If it's the third quarter and Steve has 2 targets, like, we're good. Hey guys, we're good. I'll get mine. You guys just keep getting yours. Let me know what I can do. So that was always the benefit of playing along Steve, was just how he handled those moments.
Bro, that was the best lie I've ever heard a man say on the stand in my life.
So everything I just said. Now, here's what I will say, and now I'm being serious. I have no problem with really good players demanding the ball, demanding what they deserve. The one thing I will say about Steve, well, a lot of things I'll say, but one of the things I would say about Steve is when it came time to running full speed in practice and going to compete on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, on a Friday, on a training camp practice, and OTA in May, he ran every route full speed to embarrass you and to win. And then when it came to Sunday and game time, what everyone else saw was not unique to us, right? Fighting the defensive back and spinning the ball on his feet. That happened on a Wednesday practice when no one was watching. So like that level of competitiveness as a teammate and just someone who respects guys around the league, I had no issues. Now, if you sucked and you were a pain in the ass and all you wanted was your ball, I'd be like, dude, you fix your shit and then we'll worry about getting you. But like when you're a hell of a player and you demand all the attention and you are as productive and as consistent and as much of a competitor as Steve was, like, I have no problems with really good guys knowing who they are, knowing their identity, and saying, you know, we're better when you throw me the ball because I'm the baddest dude out here. Like, I have no issues with that.
I like it. I like it. You
Damn,
like that,
Greg,
Steve, right?
I was surprised you said that. Thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
Now, did I MF you under my breath a couple times? Sure. I'm kidding. I mean, again, I'm not just sitting here trying to just praise Steve and all that, but I do think I think everyone has to be very honest when discussing, like, again, wide receivers get the Ocho Cincos and Steve and these really high level number one guys for a long time. I think they get this stigma and this aura of like, hey, it's only about them. They only care about their production. Let me just say this. When it was Sunday and Steve was on your team, you were better off and you were damn happy that he was in the huddle competing on your side. He wanted to fight every other person on the other team. And if anyone on the other team took a hit at you, a shot at you, something he perceived, there was no question who the first guy to come to your defense was and the first guy who was competing on every single play. And this is not a game of Boy Scouts. This is not a game of who can be the best sportsman. This is a highly competitive game played by highly competitive people. And you want as many of those guys around you in the huddle as humanly possible. And that was Steve.
I appreciate it, Greg. Damn.
That's it.
I love it. Well, listen, Steve doesn't like to talk about other positions, Greg.
No,
That's why you're here.
About these
we had
tight ends,
MJD on talking about running backs. We have to find other sources of information.
And I'm cool with that. That's the whole premise. Like, I come in and try to be my authentic self and say, hey, we're going to do tight end breakdown. I don't care. I don't give a damn about these tight ends. So let's have an expert in here who really cares, and some people sitting here, on the couch and saying, well, why do you have a podcast if you don't care about every position? Because I don't have enough time to watch film, man, right? Have you seen me speak as an analyst? I can't do what Greg do. I'm not interested, right?
Okay.
I'm just not. Greg is so not trying to laugh because he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Everybody's got their thing.
You're going to slide over here, Steve. We break down tons of receivers here.
Yeah.
We've gone through it, and now we're going through these tight ends. And Greg, the first thing, playing it at a high level, being a first-round draft pick at tight end. Now we saw 2 more of them this year. There's been 27 now taken in the first round since 2000. Now that you analyze the game and watch film the way you watch, before we get into these kind of top 5 tight ends, how are guys used differently out of the position than you've seen when you kind of played? What's been the evolution now in these offenses as these chess pieces have gotten athletic, size, speed, all these things, moved around the formation? What have you seen now from the spot in your commentator role when you look at film?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, so I got drafted in 2007, and when I got drafted into league, there was a handful of really top tier, Hall of Fame guys, right? There was Witten and Gates and Gonzalez, and so there was a lot of really, really high level talented dudes. But there was a handful, right? And those guys were household names, and they were having 1,000-yard seasons, and they were marquee. But it was still a running back and a wide receiver driven league. Take quarterback out, but like as far as targets of who got the ball, it was still a wide receiver and a running back league. Run game was still a little bit more prevalent back. This was at that time. So I think the biggest reason the impact of the position has grown is because I think multiple reasons. But number one, offenses now have a better use of that type of body type. And what I mean is, when I came out at 6'5" and 250 pounds, in those days, I was on the smaller side, right? They wanted the 265-pound guy who played at the end of the line, and he can control the C gap, and he can pass protect one-on-one, because they wanted Steve and Moose, and they wanted receivers down the field. And then we were getting naked routes, we were getting choices, we were getting flats, we were getting checkdowns, corners, red zone, but we weren't really a first and 10, third and 7. It wasn't really the nature of NFL offenses in general, obviously with a few exceptions. Mm-hmm. So I think that's first and foremost. I think as the league has shifted to more of a early passing game, play action passing game, We understand the value of the run game and what it is. It's not, you don't have to run for 240 yards a game to win, right? It's about scoring points, and that comes in the passing game. And then the ability of the run game and whatnot plays from that. So I just think what we've learned about NFL offenses and why they've shifted the way they have, there's a lot more room now for the 250-pound guy to put his hand on the ground. And he doesn't have to be a devastating run blocker, but he can keep teams honest. He can play all 3 downs, first, second, third, short yardage, red zone, backed up, P and 10 or 3rd and 7. Those guys can stay on the field, right? So I think there's kind of a systemic change in how offenses are being run. Second to that, I think tight end now, much different than 15 years ago or 25 years ago when I was growing up, is a lot cooler of a position.
Correct.
Sex appeal.
There are marquee NFL superstars that are playing the tight end position. So now you look at every 6'4", 6'5" young kid who, when I was growing up, they all had visions of being basketball players. And now these 6'4", 6'5" guys are going, you know what? I want to be Travis Kelce and Gronk and George Kittle and, whoever. So I do think there's a little of a cultural impact where it's cool to be a tight end. It's cool to be a tight end younger. It's not the converted wide receiver, the converted quarterback, the converted tight end. These guys have been tight ends forever. That's kind of new. That's probably new in the last 10 years. So I think there's a lot of reasons. There's more of them. Almost every good team has a prominent tight end. Every good offense has a prominent tight end. But again, we're talking, this is kind of a new shift in identity from a league that had always been running back, wide receiver driven for decades.
Yeah.
Let's jump into these breakdowns then, Greg. You talking about how the evolution of things. Talk about your former team, the Chicago Bears, using a first round, 10th overall pick with the young kid Loveland out of Michigan. You already know Cole Kmet is there. The writing seems to be on the wall that he may be moving on after or has to prove himself with Ben Johnson now being the offensive coordinator, because systematically, when I look at Ben Johnson, I don't really see him using a 2 tight end set. He usually has one tight end as a primary receiving tight end. The other tight end is primarily going to be used as blocking. Cole Kmet doesn't seem like that's what he's known for.
I think Loveland is the modern day tight end, right? And the reason I say that, so there's 2 types of NFL tight ends. There's guys that you have to scheme open, right? You're running play action passes. You see him here, he's lined up on the single side of the route. He's running contested catches, bodies hanging on. There's guys that you have to scheme open, and then there's guys that can get themselves open, right? There's not a lot of guys in the league that are running that whip route. You just saw him catch there. Now he's out in motion. Now he's going to catch, and it's run after catch. Like, there's just not a lot of guys in the league that can get themselves open. Right, so I think you start there. Those are the guys that you pay. Those are the guys that you draft high. And then the second tier of guys are still NFL players. They're 10-plus year veterans, but they're going to be dependent on play action. They're going to be dependent on naked flats and bang overs and all of the things that really are more scheme-wise. So I used to go into every game, and as I looked at the play sheet, I'd say, okay, I'm going to get 3 or 4 what I just call nothings, right? It's a check down, it's a flat route, it's a sticky route. It takes no skill. There's 40 guys in the league that will catch those 3 or 4 balls a game. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 1. But in that range, takes no skill. You're just gonna get them as a byproduct of the system. Then there was like 5 opportunities for me a game that I felt like not everyone can do this. Not everyone's gonna run this route.
This is Greg's play. Right.
This is my play. And if we get the right coverage, I'm getting the ball.
And the responsibility of everyone else around him, even including myself, I had to force outside release, clear out, make sure that I attract or go underneath to make sure that you open it up, because it's reciprocal. You want your teammate to do the exact same thing because roles will be reversed.
Exactly. 100%, right? So there was 5 of those in just our normal every down scripts where it's like, okay, if we get the right coverage, we get the right look, like this plays for me, but maybe not every tight end in the league is running that route or running that scheme or has the feel or whatever it is, right? That's a little bit more player personnel dependent. Loveland to me is that guy where he's going to catch the easy ones. He's going to catch the play action stuff. He's going to catch the gimmies. But then he's going to go out there and versus press man on 3rd and 7, and they want to double team Steve Smith on the outside. He can win versus safety or a nickel or a dime linebacker, whoever it is. He can win one-on-one when they want to cloud and play a safety over the top of your X. And he's going to win one-on-one. It doesn't matter what the route is. It doesn't matter. He's just going to win. I'm going to sit at him, and I'm going to put the ball on his chest. There's not a lot of those guys. Those are the Kelceys and the Kittles and the real special guys. So I think Loveland is that guy. And then, Steve, I think to your point, what's interesting is the Cole Kmet fit, I think, is going to be interesting to see how much 12, how much 2 tight end stuff do they do on early downs. And then to me, it's kind of can they share the position, especially early, because in Ben Johnson's offense, they are going to run the ball. They do have DJ Moore, right? They do have Rome Odunze. They do have a young quarterback who they are trying to develop and get better. So this Ben Johnson system, I think, is multiple. I think we've seen him play under center. He can play in the gun. He's going to be in 4 and 5 wide, but he's also going to be in 2 tight end, 2 back, and run downhill. So I think Ben's one of the few offensive minds that has the flexibility where he can build his system around his personnel. But if I had a young quarterback and I said, okay, what is the recipe for developing this young quarterback, Caleb Williams? I'd say, okay, I got DJ Moore. He's been doing it for a while. He's a veteran guy.
My spirit animal.
Super, kind of a mini Steve Smith, kind of when he was young, when he played with me, and like great after the catch, almost more of like a running back more than he was a receiver because he was so strong with the ball in his hand. DJ, he's proven. They draft Rome Odunze. Now they draft Loveland. They've invested in the O-line. That's the recipe for helping develop a young second-year quarterback in Caleb Williams. So I think the job they've done in conjunction with bringing Ben Johnson, that pick to me is really good. Would I ever draft a tight end, any tight end in the top 10? Probably not. And that's not because they're not good players. It's not because they're not top 10 worthy players, because I think he is. I just think the value of what you have to pay for that tight end relative to what the market across the board is. You're a top 10 pick. You're paying Loveland day one like he's one of the top 3 to 5 tight ends in the league. If you draft a left tackle, a wide receiver, a defensive end, a quarterback in the top of the draft, a top 10 pick and quarterbacks in the bottom half of compensation, you're getting a lot more value relative to the vet. So that's a whole separate conversation. But I think as a talent, he's really good.
This is why I love what you just said. This is what makes me ask a deeper question. You have a young quarterback who 90% of his college career was about throwing the football off schedule. He rarely threw the ball on time, on schedule. Now, getting Loveland, isn't this kind of a indication that you want to get your quarterback to do a little bit more throwing on schedule? Because you'd also don't want to overwhelm him with too many weapons, because too many weapons is what has got him in trouble at times, playing that, that off-schedule football that's got him hurt, that's missed, got him nicked up, that's missed opportunities, missed plays. So that's why I think, this is just me looking at it, knowing ball, that's why I think that this is Loveland takes over, because you can't have too many guys where all of a sudden you kind of put them right back into those bad habits that you were brought in to fix anyway.
No, I think it's a good point. My gut tells me, just from watching Ben Johnson and talking to him and just getting to know him over the year, obviously the job he's done with the Lions previous, this is going to be a lot more in rhythm, on time. He's going to get under center. There's going to be play action. There's going to be tight window throws. There's going to be a lot of layers into the coverage. Like, this is not going to be stand, shotgun, catch, bounce around, wait for a guy to come open and rip it. That's not Ben Johnson's offense. That's not why they hired Ben Johnson. I would be I just don't see a scenario that's – I think they've got to get Caleb into a more rhythm, on time, hit your back foot, one hitch throw. Hit your back foot, no hitch throw. I think they've got to get him. He is always going to be an off-script player naturally, and you never want to take that completely away from a player. I think that's the beauty, that's the magic, right? That's Josh Allen, that's Mahomes. To play elite level quarterback in the NFL right now, you have to be able to create off-script. You have to be able to play off rhythm. Things aren't perfect, buy time, throw on the run, move, buy. Okay, But you can't play every single down like that and think there's going to be any level of consistency.
That's giving me anxiety just thinking about him as a wide receiver. Like I'm looking like, can somebody bring me some Tums? Just the end asset buildup right now.
I can get you. Listen, I got
about
one.
Playing in rhythm or about playing off script?
Off script. You know how I am
Like
about
playing off script.
Greg, look at me. Do you think
I know you do like playing. I was just.
No, I'm saying I don't like my quarterback to play off script because I'm the only one that can play off script. Like I'm maneuvering through the defense. I need you to look at the safety and not bring your off script into me going under that blue tent.
It's very hard to consistently play like that every single down. Now on 3rd and 7 and you miss a guy off the outside edge, you've got to be able to make that guy miss, buy time, scramble, let someone second react and put the ball in your chest and pick up the first down. If you can't do that, it's very hard. I'm not saying you can't, but it's very hard to be a really high-level quarterback in the NFL if you can't play off script. But it can't be every single play.
Yeah, I got one more on Colston, Greg, before we move on to Tyler Warren. And it's asking around, I did hear a lot of when Caleb does go off script, this might be his favorite target because that is a strength of Colston Loveland's game and kind of understanding what his quarterback wants to do. And that could be a chemistry that builds quickly. I'm curious you mentioned him going at 10th overall. I think there's an added pressure for sure. And then you look at the number of weapons that they do have. We haven't even mentioned that in the second round, they take Luther Burden at the wide receiver spot. That's another slot guy, which Steve on our shows have said repeatedly, he thinks Rome Odunze can be very good out of the slot and working inside, and was kind of blocked by Keenan Allen this past year. Steve, you've kind of said that a couple of times. But I wanted to say the situation and the flexibility and the formational flexibility they have, Greg, does that maybe ease some of the burden of being a tight end and everything you have to learn early on, maybe for Colston Loveland because of the options that Ben Johnson's going to have to work with?
Yeah, so if he was drafted 31st, right? So I was drafted to Chicago, but I was drafted 31st, and we had a veteran tight end there that was a really good player in Desmond Clark. So I had to come in. I was like the 12 tight end guy, and I had a role, and I had 30 snaps a game, and I was only asked to do what I was good at, and I could learn all the other things because we had Bernard Berrien and Muhsin Muhammad and Desmond Clark, and like we had a lot of other proven really good
Johnny
players.
Knox.
Yeah, exactly. So like we had real dudes when I got there. So the other side of that coin though is you don't get that luxury when you're drafted in the top 10. Unfair, fair, whatever you want to classify it, there's an expectation of we took you in the top 10. You need to be Travis Kelce. You need to be Brock Bowers, right? I think Brock Bowers is the best young tight end to come out of college in the last 10 years, maybe longer. And then obviously his rookie year in Vegas with the Raiders backed it up. I mean, he was incredible, but that's what he was in Georgia. Yep. He's really special. But is the expectation? Is Loveland going to get that level of production, that level of targets? He's not going to play in a team that, if the Bears know what they're doing, they're not going to be trailing and trying to 4,000. Right. So there's hope. The reason I say that is this.
Yeah, I know.
When you get drafted to a bad team and you're losing a lot of games, getting individual production is very easy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? You're throwing the ball the entire second half. It's garbage time. I'm not saying that's Brock Bowers. He's talented and had the opportunity to play in a million passing situations.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the Bears. I think the Bears are pretty good. I think they're better than I think there's built-in wins that now with Ben Johnson and they get things organized on offense and they get somebody developed. Like, I think there's a lot more there than we'd seen in years past. I don't think that's the style that they're going to be forced to play. So can you separate false expectations of a top 10 tight end that he's going to be 1,000-yard receiver? Maybe. I just don't know if there's going to be enough opportunities with the other players and the style of offense in which they're going to play.
Yeah.
I just don't, and it won't be an indication that he's not a great player because I think he is. It takes a lot of special circumstances for tight ends to get that many opportunities to be that productive for 17 games, let alone do it as a rookie.
Yeah, the situation's huge. I'm excited, though, because remember, Ben Johnson's been a tight end coach in college. He's been a tight end coach in the league. I think this is a great fit in terms of finding your footing as a tight end taken 10th overall in this type of offense. Moving on to Tyler Warren. And what I want to get to with this, Greg, is what we've heard in this draft process over and over again is this. There is Colston Loveland in the Kelce tree. There is Tyler Warren in the Gronk tree. First, do you believe those are essentially the two trees, or can you blend them? I'm not sure if that school of thought relates to you. And obviously a different player than Colston Loveland, but Tyler Warren, Chris Ballard believes brings a lot of physicality, as we just see right there, to this offense, and that's kind of the identity he wants to change there.
Yeah, a little bit of first. There's definitely now whether the difference between Gronk and Kelsey and modeling and all that. I don't know. Gronk's a different animal. There's just not a lot of 6'6", 265-pound guys. You know, his catch radius and just his sheer length and size. It's just there's not a lot of guys built like that. And then the Kelsey thing, you can't teach young players to play Kelsey's style of tight end. Mm-hmm. The feel, the instincts, the chemistry with your quarterback, being on the same page, and then the coaching staff to give you that flexibility over and over to go out there and kind of improvise. Mm-hmm. Yep. They're more of the exception than they are the rule. Like, I don't think that's something that you could like count on other people doing, especially early in their career. But I like Tyler Warren, different body type, different play style than Loveland. I mean, you even see on the highlight reels, which again can be misleading, Loveland's like real smooth in and out of breaks and whippy and real twitchy and long, and he almost plays like a slot receiver. Tyler Warren's like more of your traditional like F. He's more of like you could put him in the backfield and run two-back stuff. You could put him in the slot and he could be your second puller on counter.
Old school.
And then, old school. Yeah, like he's got a little bit of an old school vibe to him, but then when you throw him the ball, he's plucking it with his hands and he's good in space. So he's a little bit more of like a blended player than I would say Loveland is. And I think Ballard, the GM up in Indianapolis, if Loveland was there, would he have still taken Warren? Who knows? My gut says this fits a little bit more with what Indianapolis wants to be with Jonathan Taylor and, try to figure out still what they want to be at quarterback now with Daniel Jones and obviously Richardson. So they're still trying to figure out there. Steichen wants to be under center, play action, play pass stuff. So I think he's a little bit of a better fit for what in their minds Indianapolis wants to be. But I agree with you. Very different play style, very different background, very different body type than Loveland between Warren and him.
Dang, Greg, I'm actually surprised. I would have thought you would have saw clearly with the Colts and getting Warren what this is. This is Dallas Clark 2.0. This is an opportunity to replace exactly the type of tight end that they had back in the day with Peyton Manning. And this is the second coming of Dallas Clark. I think the way Dallas Clark cut his career short by playing this way, the tough man, kind of running yourself into the brick wall, catching it, blocking, making sure that he's on the field for all pass and run situations. That's what I wrote down when I saw him, and just wearing 44, watching him play, then going with Chris Ballard, going to the Colts. That's automatically what I thought.
White guy. You left that part out. No, I'm just kidding. Every 44.
It's like, hey, Steve, it's like Greg's been on the show, or he's been watching every episode, because apparently
every 44 white guy, everyone in the world thinks is Dallas Clark.
No,
I agree.
See, hold on, Greg. I would say that.
I'm saying I believe that. I'm saying okay. I see every 44, and I think he's Dallas Clark.
Here's the difference in a football. Like, me and you are joking, but some people are gonna think we're serious. Here's the difference. When I say Dallas Clark, I think Dallas Clark was a hell of a football player. Not just a number. When I was sitting on the sideline and 44 was out there and Peyton Manning was the quarterback, or seeing a key situation, hell, Dallas Clark is the person that you on the sideline going, somebody cover him, please, somebody cover him. So it has nothing to do with the association of color. It has to do with the association of what kind of ball player that individual was and what kind of threat for the opposing defense and for the opposing offense, because they kept us on the sideline when Dallas Clark got the football.
So I'll tell you, I've gotten to know Dallas a little bit. So we do a TEU, which is like our big tight end academy that we do down in Nashville every summer.
Thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
We get about 70 tight ends from all over the country, from all over the league, a couple college guys, mostly NFL guys. And we go down, we do it at Vandy, and we do it for 3 days. It's awesome. So Dallas has come the last 3 years. So of the veteran retired guys, it's like me and Dallas, and I stand there and pseudo coach and organize the drills, but I'm not putting on cleats and running routes. Let me tell you what, Dallas was an unbelievable player. He's like one of the guys when I came into the league, you know, with Witten and Gates and those guys, they were at like the top of the list. Dallas today is an absolute, like he runs all the routes, does all the drills. He's out there sweating. He's jacked. He's lean. Like if you walked in, you'd be like, that dude's still playing. He's like 45 years old. So everything you remember of Dallas, he still looks like that today. And every summer at TEU, he is at the front of the line, running all the routes, doing everything with like the 22-year-old guys. He can still run. He's still strong as shit. He's still jacked. Like, that dude is different.
We do know Tyler Warren's dad showing him old John Riggins video was a big reason of the 44, right? And and that's why kind of one of the reasons where. But I wanted to ask on fit one more before we move on, Greg, is I look at asking around the league, people say, you know, this is Shane Steichen maybe getting himself a better version of Dallas Goedert. Right, sticking with the Dallas term, maybe in terms of talent. And we saw what Shane did those 2 years with Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia. I mean, in 21 and 22. And I'm kind of curious what your take is on obviously knowing all these guys, what you see Shane Steichen can do with that position, because they all, talking to people in Indy, they want to put him everywhere. I mean, they want to move him all over the field. What do you see the fit in Shane? Because I do think he did a really good job with, I think, a really good tight end in Dallas Goedert in Philly.
Yeah, listen, if Tyler Warren is that much better than Dallas Goedert, they should be doing backflips, because Dallas Goedert
I think Dallas is like a top 5 tight end, honestly.
I wouldn't say top 5, but he's pretty good.
The biggest issue facing Dallas Goedert is when he looks to his left, he has A.J. Brown. And when he looks to his right, he has Devontae Smith. And when he looks behind him, he's got Saquon Barkley.
Mm-hmm. Too many black guys? Is that what you're trying to?
No.
Steve, he's such a good player.
That's exactly what I was talking about. He's the only white guy in the huddle. That's the problem. I'm just kidding. No, the issue is if you're running that offense, for as good as Dallas Goedert is, I'm a tight end, and listen, I'm throwing A.J. Brown the ball. I'm throwing Devontae Smith the ball, and I'm handing the ball to Saquon. Like,
yeah,
I get it. Like, you can only feed so many guys at the same time. So, like, it's really just a volume thing. They're going to run the hell out of the ball with Saquon, and they've got arguably the best pair in the league, if not one of the top 2 or 3 duos in the league. So I don't think Goddard gets like the gaudy numbers, the 1,200 yards. But when you talk to defensive coordinators, his ability to be on the field in 11 personnel, in 12, in flex, in the backfield, in 2-back, his ability to move around and build different packages, build different looks is very unique. So that's kind of the same element you talk about with Tyler Warren, is the ability to be on the field every down is the greatest gift that a tight end can bring to an offense. Because if you can only be on the field when it's a rundown, or you only can be on the field when it's a passing down, and it's just too hard in this day and age. These defensive coordinators, they're going to eat you up because they're going to know your tendencies. Mm-hmm. But if he can be in the backfield and he's like an H-back fullback, and then he can be in line next to the tackle with his hand on the ground, then you can go 2x2 and be in almost like a spread 2x2 look, and he's your slot receiver. And then you can line him up as the single side receiver and put all of your true receivers on the other side of the field. Now, do you flip your corners? Do you go corners over? If not, now one of your receivers is running against a nickel or a safety. So like that's where the tight end can really bring a lot of value, not only in his raw production, but how he undresses the defense and what it does for the receivers and the backs and obviously the play caller. So if they can get that level and beyond, I mean, that's the home run. They picked him because they think he's that kind of player, but I think Dallas, in what's probably the best offensive skill group in the league, in Philly, Dallas maybe doesn't get enough credit for just the impact he makes, but he's a damn good player.
This episode of 89 is brought to you by BetterHelp. You know, in football, you have a support system, right? Whether it's your coaches, your trainers, or your teammates to help you kind of succeed. But what about you? What about off the field and making yourself the best version of yourself? Well, BetterHelp can help you do that. I know oftentimes we're playing hero ball, right? We're going at it all by ourselves. We got to do it alone. But when you talk to a therapist, you have an opportunity to alleviate that. And we're not just talking about major trauma. We're talking about coping with a variety of things, whether it's relationship issues, just overall stress, just creating the best environment for you to be the best version of yourself. And BetterHelp can help you do that. Now, the best thing about it is BetterHelp is 100% online, so it is both affordable and convenient. With over 5 million people participating worldwide, well, you know you're in good hands. So, build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/89 and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/89. On to our third guy, and Mason Taylor. I think you guys know the family. 42nd overall to the Jets. I love what the Jets do, by the way. They could have went with one of these two tight ends at 7 if they wanted to, but they get the tackle, and then we're able to get a tight end in the second round, which I think
smart
home run in both. Yeah, there's
value pick.
You're right, Steve. There were like 5 really top-tier tackles in this draft and a little bit deeper at the tight end spot, so I think they went about it the right way. A lot of people I talked to, Greg, around the league liked him. They liked the way, he can kind of, a good sense of tempo in his routes. Pace is a big thing in the way he plays, but the one thing I kept hearing is he could have been utilized even more at LSU in terms of what he can do on a field. So I'm excited to see him operate in New York because he was a little bit limited in what they had him run. What's your take on Mason kind of as a player and what he can bring to the table? Because people see his best football is a lot further ahead of where he's at right now. He's young too.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think 7 for the Jets to take a tight end. And again, when I say this is not an indictment of any of the players being really good. With everything the Jets need, and they're in a rebuild, and they're trying to get this back on track, Aaron Glenn, who I really think is a really good coach, and I think like he can kind of get them organized and get them back on track. Does drafting a tight end at 7 all of a sudden flip your... No, it just doesn't. It's just the reality of the situation. So they go tackle, and now you get down to the third guy. And listen, does he have the upside of Loveland and Warren? Is he going to? Who knows? If they thought he did, he would have been drafted higher. But as far as value, they're in the second pick. The Jets need as many good football players as possible. Mm-hmm. You ideally need them at the impact positions, right? You need them at offensive line, defensive line, quarterback. Is Justin Fields that guy? Is he gonna? We'll find out. Like they need to collect as many great football players as they can. And I think Mason's a really good player. I agree with you. I don't think in college they really utilize them. I don't think LSU, it's not the LSU team with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and those guys from years ago. Yeah. So I think that, there's the hardest thing about evaluating tight ends out of college is, other than a handful of schools around the league or around the country, I don't know if high school and college level teams really understand how to best get the value out of their tight end, right? Like you're not seeing teams like Penn State where they're lining up Warren at quarterback and Wildcat and he's the H-back and he's a single side guy and they're giving him jet sweeps. Like it's a wide receiver running. College football is a wide receiver quarterback driven league. And then obviously the premier running backs. Mm-hmm. Then everybody else kind of filters down. That's college football. It's spread. It's shotgun. It's just a different style. So I think you have to see through that, see upside, see long-term development, and then say at the end of the day, we are in the business of collecting really good football players. And if we think, and that I think is really what it comes down to, how it fits, the offense, the X's and the O's. I think for the Jets, that's secondary. They've got to collect talent. They've got to build culture, build that locker room, build that environment to foster winning, foster success. Then we'll worry about what style offense, where do we line them up, what position, what's the formation. I think they have time for that.
Yeah. I want to ask both of you, Steve, real quick before you jump in, because this is for you too, Steve. Like I'm looking at him landing with a player like Garrett Wilson, and I'm looking at Loveland landing with a player like Rome Odunze, and getting an opportunity to grow together within an offense between a top-tier number one type of wide receiver and a number one type of tight end that can make a lot of plays in the passing game. How does that relationship play off itself for both players if you have that time, you know what I mean, to grow within, hopefully it's the same offense and you don't have any more changes like in New York, but you can grow within it together, and how does it benefit both of you? Like Steve from a receiver standpoint and then Greg from kind of a tight end standpoint.
I think that's a complicated and complex answer, because it also has to do with what Greg talked about, is what was this player what was not of this player required. Like they weren't required to know blocking responsibilities or understand learning how, when you run a basic or run an under or run a whip, are they required to read or are they told? Like understanding how these players, these young players are coached. You can play next to a top tier or a trash receiver or tight end, but if you don't know the why, then you're just out there running routes. And the part that people don't really understand is the NFL is not any other business. Like, we work for Underdog. Underdog doesn't sit us down and say, hey, when you get your paycheck now, buddy, you're gonna tithe, you're going to save, and then you're gonna treat yourself. They don't tell you what you should do. You figure the shit out as you go. And to some degree, depending on what kind of coach you get, you may get a coach, this is his first day on the job. And he is learning the damn offense as you learn the offense. He's learning the role as you learn the role. That's not the case for all 32 teams. But I am saying, because you're with top tier, or because you went to a good school, does not automatically make you understand how to play the game professionally, inside and out, with your eyes and with your mind.
Yeah, listen, development is the hardest piece of all of this.
Yeah.
Right? Identifying fast guys, big guys, throw it far, jump high, run after catch, how many yards. That stuff's fairly easy. Like, if you have a decent eye of what it looks like, I can tell you that receiver's good, that receiver stinks. That's not rocket science. But development is the piece that people don't spend enough time talking about. So you draft a young tight end, a young receiver, it doesn't matter who it is. What environment are they walking into? They're just starting with their position coach. Then the room that they're operating in, like what sort of environment? Is there a guys that are helping? Is there a lot of experience? Is there not a lot? And then from there, what does the offense look like? Who's the quarterback? Who's the play caller? There's so many levels that dictate. There are so many careers that are blundered and so many careers that prosper that if they flipped roles, they would have had completely different experiences, all because of where you are and what you're asked to do. And that's in college and that's in the pros. So there's such an element of creating a framework to allow talent to grow. Nobody comes into the league, no matter how good you are in college, no matter what you accomplished in college, nobody comes into the league and says, if I just stay status quo for the next 10 years, I'm going to be an all-pro player. It doesn't exist. The best college football player is in the bottom half of NFL talent. Those players now that hit the rocket ship and they start climbing, Jaden Daniels last year was put in a very good environment, from ownership to general manager to head coach to play caller to players around him. Terry McLaurin's the ultimate professional. You add all that up. Kingsbury's done this before. He's developed a young quarterback before. He made a lot of mistakes, but now he made a lot of corrections. Dan Quinn has built culture. He knows locker room. He knows personality. So what happens? A really talented guy who was the Heisman Trophy winner walked into an environment where it fostered growth and development and success, and he took the league by storm. Like, if you put Jaden Daniels in another team, he's still just as talented, but maybe it doesn't go that way. Like, that is the truth for all positions. So where these guys go is so much more important than how high they go, how much money they make. If I was a young player nowadays, I don't give a shit if I'm pick 1 or pick 200. Where am I going? If I'm going to Kansas City, I'm going to be good. Whatever my ceiling is, Andy Reid and Mahomes, if I'm an offensive skill player, whatever my ceiling is, now I might not be Steve Smith, but I'm going to be whatever my best version is, I'm going to be that.
Well, hold on, Greg. You hope, because they have some players they use in the second, third round where it just did not equal up to success. I mean, and the reason I think of that, the first name popped in my head is Sky Moore. I love Sky Moore, and he's worked his butt off. But for whatever reason, yes, some injuries. Yes, he hasn't been available, but there's been times he has a healthy scratch where what they've asked him to do, he's unable to do it on a consistent level.
Right, but Scott, so we'll use that as an example. My point is, if you can't have success in that system, in that environment, you're not having success anywhere. Right? Like, there's something missing, and who knows? There's a million reasons. It's injury, there's a million factors. talent is usually not the limiting factor of guys drafted high in the NFL draft. The talent part is pretty much there. You're not drafted first, second, third round if you're not wildly talented.
Yep.
But I would argue talent's like fifth on the list of priorities of whether you're going to have a 10-year Pro Bowl career or not. And fit and environment and coaching staff and locker room and all of those things is a huge part of it. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of guys that, I don't know, they don't. Sam Darnold, he gets drafted to the Jets. It's a disaster. It looks like he's forgotten how to play football. And last year he was amazing, and now he's a starter.
Yep.
Like, if Sam Darnold got drafted and was coached by Sean McVay, what did that early part of his career look like? You know, like Jared Goff. He was coached by McVay, had a lot of success. They didn't think they could move on to the next level. They replaced Stafford. They replaced him with Stafford. He goes and gets coached by Ben Johnson, and Jared Goff's like, environment and who you're coached by is so
matters. Yeah,
that's and I would agree, point, probably more so in football than maybe any other major sport in terms of the fit and what matters. And you mentioned Sean McVay. That moves us on to Terrance Ferguson, which to me, this might be my favorite player to talk about out of this group when we talk about fit. This is a kid that's coming out of Oregon, to where if you ask people up there, they'll tell you that they steal a lot from Sean McVay in what they do offensively. So it already helps the player in terms of where he's landing. And I think it also helps the Rams evaluated him in this process by seeing him do some of the things that they like to do. And this is a guy, to my understanding, guys, the Rams are going to take at 26th. But then obviously the trade with the Falcons was just too nice to pass up, getting another first rounder for 2026. And then they end up still getting him at 46th overall. This is the player that Sean McVay absolutely fell in love with. And I think we know when McVay falls in love with a player, he falls hard. This is one of them.
Just watching his highlights and watching his mannerisms, he already looks like Kelsey, to be able to move and just kind of just how he uses his body. That's the young version of Kelsey coming out of Cincinnati. And that's just one of the things. And I'm not saying he's going to be Kelsey. I'm just talking about mannerisms. When you watch certain players, they do certain things from the waist up, and you start to see certain players have certain traits and certain mannerisms. And he has that same gather step, staying square, always looking at, some people call it defender, always looking at his victim to be able to utilize which shoulder he's going to create free access. So it just reminds me of Kelsey a little bit at such a young age. Look at him, falling over himself just like Kelsey. So it looks just like him.
No, I think it's a great comp. And again, when it's important when you make comps, especially guys like Kelsey, no one's suggesting that he's going to have the production, the longevity, and the success and all that. But to Steve's point, it's play style. Right? It's body type, it's play style. And just again, watching those clips and watching him, when you watch Kelsey play, I would say 95% of the game he spends not running full speed. Yeah. There's a few times where he's just booking it downfield or after the catch where he turns it on. But he's playing and if he's in 5 gears, Kelsey's playing most of the game in like gear 3, and then he downshifts to 4, and he's in 3 and 4. He's very rarely in 5th gear, just letting it open up. And that's why he's so good getting in and out of breaks, and he has a little wiggle, and he has that body control in his feet, because you hear basketball players talk a lot about it. Like, it's not how fast you are, but it's how fast you can change speeds. Mm-hmm. Kelsey's like the epitome of that as a route runner. His ability to change speeds is what makes him so hard to defend. So, again, you watch those films, I couldn't love going to McVay. I don't care what position you play. If you're an offensive player, I want to go play for a McVay or a Shanahan or a Ben Johnson. Like, there's those handful of names out there that you just know. And I think the Rams are in an interesting kind of transition now. I think Puka Nacua, obviously now he's the guy. With Cooper being gone, I think Nacua he's the premier guy. That offense is going to run through him. How many more years does Stafford have? I get, the arrangement, it's a year-by-year basis, but can they add another big body, another they never had a ton of the speed. Kupp was never a big speed guy. Nakua's fast enough. Like, he's kind of that bigger body, reliable, super versatile, all the misdirection, all the play action, the under center stuff that they're going to do. Like, he's a really good fit for that. And listen, if what you're saying is true and they were going to take him in the first round, then this is the win of a lifetime. I always take those reports with a grain of salt. I don't think anyone ever picks a player and is like, you know what, we thought he sucked, but he was there. Like, everyone underdrafts for a player, right? Like, it's good job security. Like, I took him at 25, and it's like, man, we would have taken him at 4. It's like, would you have?
Greg, how many college coaches have come out and said, I hate this recruiting class? I didn't get any of the players I wanted.
There's a gamesmanship to all of it. And I'm not saying they're disingenuous. I'm just saying I take it with a grain of salt. But having said all that, he's talented. He comes from a premier program. And when you can put talented guys into a Sean McVay system, he has shown for a long time now that even if they're not the most heralded, they're not the number 1 overall pick. I mean, Puka Nacua was a great college player. He was not the heralded draft.
He was good. He was not great.
He was a very good.
He was BYU.
We can split hairs. If he's at Alabama, is he more?
He's great.
Right. So there's a lot of elements to where you play. But having said all that, if you're a real football player and you're talented and you go in there and you buy into what Sean McVay is going to ask you to do, he's shown the ability to have guys have a lot of success. So talent and fit. That's usually now it's not a guarantee, but it's a really good place to start.
Yeah. And they've been looking for this player, I think, for a couple of drafts.
And I think Higbee's been a really good player for them for a long time.
Yeah, but he's been injured, so that's taking its toll. So with that being said, let's go down now to Seattle Seahawks with the 50th pick, because you're talking about fits. What type of player are they getting, and what type of offense are the Seattle Seahawks now with Sam Darnold?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question. Obviously, changing the offense, they're bringing Kubiak in. We saw what he did. When he had a role in there.
When he had players on the field,
they brought in. Remind me,
they brought in Clint Kubiak. Yep.
Yeah, Kubiak.
Clint.
Yeah, so obviously, again, he took the league by storm last year. His first couple games down in New Orleans, you thought he was going to be the next thing, and then Carr gets hurt and things kind of unravel. So we'll see what level Kubiak wants to be. Traditional, under center, 2 back, 2 tight end, downhill, play action, passing game. Like, he wants to be that to the nth degree. That we saw him try to implement that last year, and what he did with Taysom Hill and how he used the fullbacks and whatnot. So again, he comes from the best tight end school in America, so that helps.
Yeah, there it is.
So I just want to make sure we're clear there.
There it is, yes, crystal.
And so again, I think we've talked so much about fit. I think, is he talented? Is he dynamic? Can he make plays down the field? Can he make plays after the catch? Can you use him in the play action game? I mean, just in this one highlight clip alone, but just watching a bunch of Miami games from last year at Arroyo, he can do all these things. The question becomes, what is the role of the tight end in the offense? What is the overall style? How do they play to the strengths of Sam Darnold now as they try to implement new quarterback, new offensive system? They never really found their identity last year, and I think they really struggled. And I think McDonald really struggled in his first year as the head coach, figuring out, like, who do I want to be? What do I want my offense to look like? I'm a defensive guy. They go the college route, and I don't think Geno was ever really comfortable, and they had a lot of talent. So it's going to be very interesting to me to see the combination of Darnold and Kubiak. What does that system look like? Because again, adding a big body who can be good in the run game, good enough in the run game to then use in the play action, use in the intermediate stuff with Jackson Smith and Jigba and some of the talent they have, like, that's real. Now, you lose DK, you lose Tyler. Mm-hmm. I don't love getting rid of talented players, especially a guy like DK who's young, but they're revamping what this offense is going to look like, and we'll see.
So Elijah Arroyo out of Miami, when you just rattled off all those different players, knowing Clint Kubiak's offense and knowing how he does things, I can tell you right now, DK Metcalf is an outstanding wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He does not fit what Clint Kubiak wants to do out of an X or a Z wide receiver. The ability to get upfield, break down. They have different routes that they want you to completely stop and give a head fake going this way and going that way. And so DK is more of a straight line, a deep over, a Dino, a post, a go, a hitch. Being able to run some of the patterns that Kubiak's offense requires makes things a little bit more complicated. And then when you have a Tyler Lockett who's a slot guy who's inside, he's a little thin compared to how Clint wants him because he wants them to help chip and be part of the run game, which is generally why they run a lot of 12 personnel and tight end. So those two players leaving has more to do with who and what the offense coordinator perceives to be prototypes in his offense and less of production and what these guys can and can't do. Is more of, this is my system that I know, and then this is the type of players and physical attributes that they must have. This is a Owen Daniels. This is a Pitta. This is the type of tight end that they want to see that can chip, can get in the way of the edge player, but at the same time, get out into the field and catch passes more than anything.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. I personally, and again, we'll see how all this plays out. And again, it's so hard to speculate until we see until we actually see what the product on the field looks like. My only counter that I would say is, and this is just like my general view on NFL offenses, if you ask me what my system is, my first question is, who's my quarterback and what does my personnel look like? Mm-hmm. I don't believe in coming in and saying, I do this. Sorry, DK Metcalf. Sorry, Steve Smith. Sorry, Johnny Jones. You don't fit. I'm just not a huge believer in replacing really good players until you know who I'm replacing them with.
But teams do
it. They do it all the time.
They
do it all the time. I'm just saying, personally, that would not be my approach. I think the best play callers, the best offensive minds, say, who do I have? Where are my strengths? I'm going to lean heavy. Where are my weaknesses? I'm going to hedge and protect there. And then I'm going to build my system to the talent that I have and protect my weaknesses. Like, that to me is the greatest sign of coaching, the greatest sign of offensive play calling. So again, I'm not saying Kubiak can't do that. I thought last year in New Orleans, and again, a lot going on. Offensive line was tough, and we covered a lot of those New Orleans Saints
receivers going
games.
down like crazy. Yep.
I understand what he was dealing with. I thought it was very traditional. It was very conservative. It was first down run, second down run. Let's be in third down and manageable. Like, those days are over. There's no such thing as like, we just play to be in third and manageable. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. That's all bullshit. No one's really doing that. The good teams at least are not doing that. We want to get first downs on every down, however we have to do it. I thought it was a little conservative, a little backwards. When you look at what Sam Darnold did with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, his breakout resurgence of his career, it was downfield passing game. Now, of course, it helps when you have the wide receivers and you have Justin Jefferson, and I get that. But that's who he is. He's a downfield, deep layers, deep crossers, big posts, deep overs. That's DK Metcalf. And that's to your point, Steve. Like, he's not a comeback guy. He's not a break my feet down chop guy. He's a don't break stride, get deep into the defense, put pressure on the second level. Because now all of a sudden, when those guys are protecting the deep layers and the deep overs and the big posts, now my checkdowns go for 12. Now my tight end chip flat goes for 8. And all of a sudden it's 2nd and 2. Like, that's what DK is. That's what Sam Darnold was in Minnesota under O'Connell. He was the best downfield passer in football because he's got the arm, he's athletic to buy the time, and he can rip it. And obviously his scheme and personnel at the receiver spot made that the style of their offense. But like, I would have tried to just recreate exactly what made Sam Darnold have a lot of success. I would have just taken that model and just tried to implement it in Seattle if it was me.
The problem is, though, Greg, is exactly everything you said, right? It sounds good in theory. They obviously thought otherwise because they shipped him off.
Yeah, listen, they could win 12 games this year and be the 5th best offense in the league. Who knows, right? Yeah, like, who knows? So
we're just talking football, but because it
there's
really
always
does
exceptions to every rule, right? Like, so when I say like this is not the only way to play, but when you look at the good offenses year in and year out, there's commonalities between them all. Yep. They're not all the same. They're not all doing it exactly the same way, but there's some trends that we're seeing now that all the top offenses have a lot of carryover and a lot of similarities in what they do. Philosophically, condensed formations, pre-snap motions, under center play action on first and second down, downfield passing game. Like, those things are real. Now, that doesn't mean you can't play the whole game in shotgun and have a lot of success, because Buffalo does and Kansas City does, but you don't have Josh Allen and you don't have Patrick Mahomes. So there's always exceptions to the rule. And the key is finding out, okay, what exceptions apply to me, and where do I have to just play by the letter of the rules because maybe I don't have exceptional talent like you do or like you do. Like, that's the game everybody's playing, but there's certainly a model that we're finding of the top teams that they're doing a lot of very similar things, that they might dress it up different, but at its core, philosophically, what Ben Johnson and McVay and Shanahan and what these guys want to do philosophically is very consistent.
Yeah. Well, I'll hold my how would you use Jalen Milroe in this offense, Greg, question, which I wanted to kind of throw out there. Would you throw him in some packages?
Yeah. Listen, I think, and again, it goes to my earlier point. What is my offense? Who do I got? I'm going to use every guy on my team from the starting quarterback to the backup quarterback to the fifth wide receiver to the sixth receiver, my third tight end. I'm going to piece together the strengths of every player that's at my disposal. And that might be 0 plays a week. It might be 10 plays a week. Every game, every circumstance calls for different stuff. And if Jalen Milroe can become a goal line, short yardage, wildcatish runner who also obviously is talented, he's a true quarterback, and he can be that wrinkle that keeps people off balance. This is not high school football. You're not going to do it 25 times a game. Yeah. But there's no reason that can't be in your package, and you show it every once in a while, because guess what? The second you show it, next week, if you're playing the Bears, they're going to practice.
Now they got to spend time.
So I just am a big believer that everything is on the table, and you should maximize every single player that puts a uniform on and has a helmet. If there's something they do, even if it's one play, if there's something they can bring to make your offense, your defense, whatever it is, that much more dangerous, that much more unpredictable, that much more efficient, you turn over every stone, because the margin for error in the NFL is so small that if you're not finding every competitive advantage across your entire team, every situation, every decision, every game management move, like, if you're not doing that, you're going to fall behind.
Hey, hold up, though. Hold the phone. This is the broadcasting, Greg Olsen, because I know damn well if me and Greg are in the huddle and they take him and
I'm not saying take me out. Let's just be clear.
If they take
there's certain parameters you have to work within.
No, Steve and I aren't coming out, but somebody else in the huddle might have to come out. You can't play with 12.
Yeah. Hey, me and Greg are sitting on the sideline. You see this bullshit?
This shit's stupid. This ain't working. These guys don't know what they're doing. Steve, can you pass me the water bottle?
Bro, me and Greg are sitting on the sideline, and then Greg, tell the truth now, though. If it gets sacked and then they call us up, me and you looking at it like, you took us out? No, bitch, put somebody else in. I ain't going in.
Yeah, 3rd and 17.
Hey, Greg, Steve, get in. I'm going. You can go. I ain't going. Well, if Steve ain't going, I ain't going.
Hey, listen, all these ideas are great, but I'm not coming off the field.
I love it.
I had to say that because...
No, you're right.
Some of these analysts be sitting there, they be like, oh, no, whatever's good for the team. I'd have been in a lot.
You know what's good for the team? We're in the huddle. That's good for the team.
Yeah. Good players.
Good players are good for the team.
We got one more for you, Greg, and this has been outstanding. This has been awesome. Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. Born in Canton, Ohio, just want to say that.
Nobody cares, bro.
That's where the Hall of Fame is. Well, Steve, do you care that he had 117 catches this year in 13 games?
And he played for Bowling Green, bro. That says something.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to be completely honest. The first highlight I'm ever seeing of him is right now. So the other guys I had a little, and that's no offense to him. I hope he becomes a great player. Now listen, I can just tell in 2 clips of watching him,
He can play.
you can't teach tall, big, and fast, right? Like you don't catch 117 balls if you can't play. I mean, he's downfield, he's long, he's big. I mean, you could see physical.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like freaking. I mean, he looks like a wide receiver.
He needs to work on that route.
What's he weigh?
He needs to work on his right leg. That thing is dragging a little bit.
Yeah,
What's he weigh?
He's not the prettiest runner from everybody I talk to. He
probably-
weighs.
I was
he weighs
say he probably
241,
has-
6'3", 229. No, he does not.
Boy, he ain't
6'3", 241. 6'3", 241. That's
Yeah,
his,
my roster said in junior college I was 6'1", so you can't always believe what you read.
no, Steve. His combine numbers are 6'3", 241.
Look at that right leg. Look.
Yeah,
look.
he looks like a converted wide receiver to me. But I mean, he's catching the ball with his hands. He can run after the catch.
Yeah.
Again, you don't catch 117 balls.
left leg,
It doesn't
though.
matter to me that he played at Bowling Green. I think we've seen really good players come from smaller
I
schools,
agree.
and we've seen really shitty players come from big schools. I think if you can play, you can play. And again, there's great value in taking these guys now. And again, Cleveland, they need as many good football players as humanly possible. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you just need to collect his. I mean, he's getting jet sweeps.
So tell me though, Greg. So tell me, you look at the Cleveland Browns and they used the 67th pick in the 3rd round to get him. What does that mean for the tight end room? What are they saying about the tight end room? Because a lot of fans think because a guy's on a roster, because a guy's starting, or because a guy went to, had a Pro Bowl year, or, had a really successful year, that player is not replaceable. Or, he's a this. It's year to year. And when the draft comes, depending on how the team utilizes the draft, especially in the first 4 rounds, if they're drafting someone that they already have a starter, they're obviously saying that they want a little bit more competition, or they're not completely satisfied with you being a starter.
Yeah, and remember that. And you're exactly right. And I think David Njoku, I think is a really good player, and he's a Pro Bowl caliber player, and he makes good money, and like he's a legit dude. And so this isn't unique to Njoku, but remember the other element to all of this is there's a fixed amount of money that we can pay everybody, right? So you could have an all-pro level, Pro Bowl level player at receiver, tight end, right tackle. It doesn't matter the position. And all of a sudden now, it's not that they draft him to replace David Njoku tomorrow. But if all of a sudden David Njoku, who's a really good player, if in 2 years he's not a $15 million a year tight end, and I can pay him $500,000, he might not be as good as David Njoku, but is he $14.5 million worse?
And where else can I allocate that money?
That's the game that's always being played. It's not who's better than who. It's who's better than who relative to how much you pay them. And I think that's the factor, like fans and everyone outside have to take a hard look and go, it's not about that we don't think Steve Smith's good or Greg Olsen is good or whoever is good, but like what we have to pay Steve Smith, what we have to pay Greg Olsen, what we have to pay Njoku in year 12, and I can pay him a 10th in years 2, 3, and 4, we might not make up all the production, but I can now reallocate. Like that's the gamesmanship that like we all have to take a step back, and we all have pride, and we all have ego, and we all say, well, you can take someone else's money, but you can't survive without me. Yeah, they can. They can survive without 99. There's a handful of guys in the league that are untouchable. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is really just, what's your cost benefit analysis? Like for what we pay you and what you bring, like can we get a lesser player money wise and get 70% of your production, and then we'll just eat the rest of the 30, we'll spread somewhere else. Like they're playing those games every single year with the vast majority of rostered NFL players, with the exception of like the super duper stars that are in like the meat of their prime. Everybody else kind of falls into that bucket, whether it's this year or it's a projection 3 years down the road. I have to plan for when that starter in year 10 is no longer the guy we all remember from year 6.
So what Greg just said, and I'm going to put it in black terms at the barbershop. When the new item comes out, you just wait a couple of weeks because Pookie is going to have the bootleg version at a discounted rate when you get your hair cut at the local barbershop. I mean, straight up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dang. Greg, we really
Now, it may have
appreciate
subtitles, but
yeah, well,
all right.
that's okay. It might be another language. Camera gets shaky sometimes.
I get it. Listen, the reality, there's something very true about the NFL where you might not like it. You always understand it when it happens to someone else, but then when it happens to you, you're like,
how dare them?
Wait, I can't believe you did this to me. I know when you did it to Steve, but how do you do it to me? But at the end of the day, there is a blanket reality of what we all sign up for.
Yeah. They were still paying me though, Greg. Sorry.
What's that?
They were still paying me though.
I don't mean literally Steve. I was just using Steve as an example of player A.
I got defensive. My bad.
Yeah, naturally.
But the reality is, every guy is replaceable, and every guy will be replaced. It's just a matter of when.
Mm-hmm. I think
it could be 15 years from now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody who's good at drafting players, by the way, real quick, to be the replacement of a current player better than Philadelphia.
They're the best. Philadelphia is the best run organization in the league.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has a greater feel for roster building, talent acquisition, and acquisition of pick quantity than Howie Roseman. And I think the ability for Howie to continue to acquire draft capital does two things.
Smart.
It gives him the ability to consolidate draft capital to move up and move around the draft to target guys in his mind that are no-brainers. And then secondly, it allows them, you don't have to bat 1,000. You don't have to hit on them all. He doesn't hit on every free agent. He doesn't hit on every draft picks. He hits on most of them, but he's so good at drafting this year that you don't remember that he signed the kid from the Jets, Huff, to us.
Bryce Huff was their big free agent acquisition. And
70. How much did he sign for? 70 million?
Too much.
Yeah, he was their big free agent acquisition. He barely played a role in the Super Bowl run. Yep.
But when you draft Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith gets developed and you sign Zach Bond and you draft Cooper DeJean and all of a sudden you hit on all these others, your prized free agent acquisition, no one even talks about.
Yeah.
I mean, look, they understand, they have a clear understanding of what kind of personnel they want in a building, regardless of coaching staff. You could talk about it with Andy Reid, with who was he was in Jacksonville, Doug Peterson. You could see it with Nick Sirianni. They have a clear understanding, and that's what makes all 32 teams so unique. Is not everybody has a clear definition and a mission statement that everybody understands and has the ability to execute year in and year out, and like you said, James, to be able to pivot. So I agree with everything you said. I just want to take this time, man, Greg. We really appreciate you taking your time.
Yeah, man.
Me and you done had some great arguments, and then obviously we've had some very intimate conversations, man, and respect the hell out of you, bro. You do a lot, obviously, here in Charlotte. We run around and bump elbows a lot of times around the Charlotte community, and man, you're always doing a lot of great things. So appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come on James and I's podcast, man. I'm really honored, and
appreciate you guys.
It's a privilege to call you a friend, bro. So
yeah, man, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it. It's good chatting with you guys, and look forward to seeing you here soon, dude.
All right.
Awesome.